10 years ago today, I experienced a very dark period of my life. I was living an idyllic life. We had 4 kids. Our oldest was going off to college. We had the house of our dreams. My husband's job was very secure. I had just started an interior design business, which was taking off. We were involved in a church that we had been in for over 20 years, and a very tight-knit family. We'd have Sunday dinners together every Sunday, and so it was just this wonderful life. And then my dad died of a heart attack while he and my mom were on vacation in Italy. He was 65 years old. I never anticipated losing my father so young. We had a very complicated relationship. For most of my teen years, I was very rebellious. He and I argued all the time about everything. And it wasn't until I became a mom and he became a grandfather that we got very close. That complicated things even more for me because I felt like I finally had my dad. And I finally had this relationship that I had always wanted, this intimacy that I always wanted with my dad, and he was gone. So after my dad died, I was still working. I was kind of doing everything that I would normally do, but I was just like raging inside. I was so sad, and then that sadness turned into such anger. I stopped going to church, and I just, at a time in my life where I really should have leaned into God, I just pulled back, and I, at some point, just decided, I'm done. I knew that that was a really bad place to be, but I really didn't care. Nothing made sense to me anymore, and God's love somehow got lumped in with everything in my life that no longer made sense. And the only thing that really was constant was that sadness and that despair. That seemed to be the only thing. And I remember thinking, am I ever going to be the same person? And there was a part of me that felt like this is your first hit and you can't even ride it out. You can't even, how great is your faith is that the first time something difficult happens to you, you turn your back on God. My whole checking out really affected my 2 middle children the most. My son was a sophomore in high school at the time, and I do think he was the most affected by it because of his closeness to my dad. My daughter Leah, who had always kind of struggled socially, was entering into a new high school. I knew she was struggling with a lot of things. I know she was struggling with trying to find her identity. It was during the course of that year, I was looking for something in her room, and I had found that she had paperwork for the morning after pill. We talked about it, and I realized that she was involved in a sexual relationship, which I was actually shocked. And my son just continued to withdraw more and more and more from us. He was angry. He and I fought all the time, and I can remember looking at the clock and seeing it was 3 o'clock and thinking to myself, oh my gosh, he's going to be home soon. Like, I didn't even want him to be home because it was that awful. And one day I was home, I was doing something in my house, I was painting or something, and a police officer came to my door and asked me to identify a coat that was my son's, and told me that Mark had broken into the high school. He didn't do anything, but he broke into the high school, and I think post-Columbine, it was bad. I underestimated, I guess at that point, how, you feel as a parent that you're intuitive. Really what it is the Holy Spirit, telling you, your kid's hurting right now, you need to go to them. And I just lost all perspective on everything. I just wasn't there for them. I was not the mom that I was. I was not the mom I had always hoped to be. And that brought, a tremendous amount of shame, because that was the thing I was most proud about was being a mom. I did start to internalize a lot of shame, and with not being there for my kids. I don't think it came from them making bad decisions. I think it came from me not even being there for them. Now here was a situation where my son could be in real trouble, and so then you really have no control over what's going to happen to your kid. As I sat in there watching these police officers question my son, it was so surreal. I never thought, my 4.0 brilliant MIT-bound son would have done something like this. And it was at that point that I said to Jack, we have to get back with the Lord. The first time we went to church, we were welcomed warmly, and I just remembered praising the Lord, and it was a song that I loved, and I closed my eyes and raised my hands and felt an overwhelming sense of warmth and indwelling of the Holy Spirit, like God was saying to me, it was like an embrace. It was His embrace, like He was saying to me, like, I have been here all along for you, and at that point I knew it was going to be okay. I knew that it was going to be a process, because I think walking through grief is a process, but I knew that those dark days were going to be behind us. I think that there was always a part of me that didn't really feel like I was good enough for God's love, and I think there was always a part of me that didn't really believe how much He loves me, that when He sees me, He sees Christ. That's the one thing I think I did experience through that whole thing, was that even after that 2 years, even after that time where I felt like, such a dark period where I had failed so miserably, He was still waiting there with open arms, and still waiting there to embrace me. I am so thankful for God's love in my life, and so eternally thankful for my relationship with Jesus Christ.